Barty Crouch Jr., son of once highly respected ministry official Barty Crouch Sr., recipient of 12 OWLs, and easily the best Death Eater. Possibly even the best villain in the entire Harry Potter series, or at least the most competent, yet we only get him for one book, one movie, and we don't even really know it's him except for a couple of chapters because we see him disguised as Mad-Eye Moody in all of Goblet of Fire. Which is ironic, or at the very least rhymes with Mad-Eye Moody as a character who we only really get to know for a couple of chapters before he dies as, the real Alastor Moody, because the whole time in Goblet of Fire, he's obviously in the trunk.
Is that a student? Technically, it's a ferret.
Yeah, even there, that's the real Barty Jr., so I feel like I gotta give him a couple cool points before we even start this, but obviously he's so good as a villain that it leads to the question of what would have happened if he never got the Dementor's kiss. What if Voldemort never lost his most capable Death Eater? And I think the best way to start this is to, just go over how great he was as a villain character. I've obviously said that he's the best of the Death Eaters, which doesn't feel like I'm saying much when this guy is one of the top lieutenants.
Look at me.
So even though this isn't the greatest group of villains that's ever assembled, you can't say that the Death Eaters aren't effective. They're winning the war before Voldemort attacks baby Harry. And yes, this is where you could say, oh, as soon as their leader was gone, they were no longer effective. The Death Eaters are only as good as Voldemort is, but when you look at what happened, they actually made the right decision, because during the time of peace between the two wars, they were able to further infiltrate the ministry by the useful idiot who was put in charge in between the wars, and then when it does start again 14 years later, it only takes them 2 years to be able to fully take over the Ministry of Magic. So as long as Harry isn't involved, the Death Eaters are actually pretty effective, and the unique thing about Barty Crouch Jr. then is that he is effective against Harry. I mean, obviously it's Voldemort's plan, and Wormtail is the one who actually gets him his new body, but none of that would have been possible without Barty Crouch Jr.'s performance as Mad-Eye. And you know this, I know this, it's the plot, but I think it just needs to be said for just how impressive it is. I mean, he manages to fight off the Imperious Curse through just pure strength of will, and it's not like some lesser wizard has it on him. His father was the former head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. That is very impressive to just have that much willpower. And then after that, he's able to convince everybody that he's Mad-Eye Moody. That includes the Ministry of Magic, who has been around Moody his whole career as an Auror. That includes Snape, who is a gifted Legilimens, and probably the best Occlumens in the whole series, and most impressively, that includes Dumbledore. He manages to pull one over on Dumbledore.
Alas, earwax.
Plus, Harry himself may have never known the real Moody before this, but he's a great judge of character, and when he listens to his instincts, they're almost always right, but he never suspects that this is somebody who is trying to hurt him. He never suspects that it's somebody other than Mad-Eye Moody trying to help him. And this is just a level of cunning from Barty Crouch Jr. that we don't get to see in the series from any other character except maybe Snape. And he's not just cunning, he's also extremely intelligent. Obviously, I've already said that he got 12 OWLs, but just for reference, Percy gets 12 OWLs, Bill gets 12 OWLs, and they're both head boys in their year, so I have to imagine that Barty Crouch Jr. was most likely also head boy in his year. And even Hermione only got 10 OWLs, and that was because she couldn't handle the pressure of taking 12 classes because of the time turner. That's the only reason why she's able to take 12 in the first place, so that also means that Barty Crouch Jr. was able to get his hands on a time turner and possessed it for about 5 years. That's a terrifying thought.
Great Scott!
And when you think about the overall story, it's not like Barty Jr. had to be killed off because he had too much ambition and he could have potentially overshadowed Voldemort. He's extremely loyal to Voldemort. He believes they share a genuine connection. The only way it kind of makes sense for the story is if we're looking at it and we don't want a duplicate character of like Bellatrix Lestrange. Like, she's the one who's going to be taking over the role of the intense and devoted and kind of crazy follower who will just follow Voldemort to the ends of the earth. And some people would take that trade, and I get it. Bellatrix is great as the psychopath, and I wouldn't change anything about her character. This isn't me saying that she's a bad character by any stretch. I just think that in some ways what makes her important as a villain is that she's the one who killed Sirius, and before then, she didn't really matter as much, and I feel like if Barty Crouch Jr. was, say, the one to kill Sirius Black, then it feels more personal to us as an audience. It's more personal because we've spent more time with Barty Crouch Jr. and, again, shows how effective he is and how much of a threat he is that Harry is going to have to deal with at some point. I don't think this had to be an either-or situation. I think we could have had both of them be effective villains because they do work well together. They're obviously both completely devoted to Voldemort and will do whatever he says, and they do work well together. They're part of the group that tortures the Longbottoms into insanity, so it's not like they're going to compete with each other, or at least not compete with each other any more than all the Death Eaters do for Voldemort's affections. But while Bellatrix has all the subtlety of a blunt axe, Barty Jr. is great at working in the shadows, and he just gets things done. I think he would have been a very effective leader for the Death Eaters, and imagine if he was at the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, or the Battle of the Seven Potters, or the Battle of Hogwarts even. Because when you look at the leadership structure for the Death Eaters at this time, Lucius Malfoy is without a doubt the least effective Death Eater. Snape then takes his position and is actively working against Voldemort, and especially when it comes to Harry, Voldemort isn't really that much better than either of them, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Voldemort always has the same plans A, B, and C when it comes to Harry. So what happens if Barty Jr. doesn't get the Dementor's kiss? If Fudge doesn't have his soul sucked and just has him sent to Azkaban, where Dumbledore knows it's a terrible idea, but we all know Fudge isn't going to listen to Dumbledore on the Dementors. And we do know that it's not going to be a very long visit in Azkaban for him, because Voldemort is quickly going to break him and all the other Death Eaters out of there, as Fudge is more focused on the non-existent coup that he believes Dumbledore is about to throw. So our next question becomes, who's going to be in charge of the Death Eaters when they lure Harry to the Ministry? I don't really see that changing. I think it's still going to be Lucius, because Voldemort's plan is already in effect before the Azkaban breakout, and Barty Jr. isn't stupid enough to try to change Voldemort's mind on this. But with Barty Jr. there at the Ministry, of course the chances of somebody dying raise exponentially, but I think I would still bet against anyone else dying because, for some reason in the canon, none of the Death Eaters try to kill any of the kids even when they get separated, and, while I do think that it would be more likely that Moody would die because for the same reason that Bellatrix wants to kill Sirius, I could see Barty Jr. wanting to kill Moody, and Moody does get incapacitated by Bellatrix. I just don't think anybody else would be dying in this battle, if for no other reason than thematically it pulls away from Sirius's death.
Stop being meta.
And nothing really changes in Half-Blood Prince either, because Voldemort spends this year focused on eliminating the powers that be that would protect Harry. He's getting ready to overthrow the Ministry of Magic, and he wants to kill Dumbledore. And he also wants to punish Lucius, which he would still be doing because he was the one who was in charge and failed to get him the prophecy. So, once again, he's going to order Draco to kill Dumbledore, so, once again, Snape kills Dumbledore.
Oh, I haven't gotten to that part yet.
It's a 4-year-old book.
I'm a slow reader.
So going into Deathly Hallows, our question becomes, who takes over in Lucius's spot? Is it going to be Barty Jr. or is it going to be Snape? Because Jr. has done everything right. He's been extremely loyal to Voldemort. He's very competent, and he's done nothing wrong. He should be the one who should take over the Death Eaters. Yeah, I don't think Voldemort's gonna care about any of that, though. I mean, he's really more of a what have you done for me lately kind of guy. And, even if you want to say, well, hey, Barty Jr. was the perfect combination of his Death Eaters, loyal enough to go to prison for him, but then competent enough to be able to break out and then bring him back to power. But again, this implies that Voldemort has any loyalty to anyone, any need for connection. We know he doesn't, so he's not going to care about any of this. If he did, then in the canon, he wouldn't have killed Snape and the two of them would have ruled together. And because of his obsession with the Dark Lord, I could see Junior feeling betrayed here, but he's not going to take it out on Voldemort. If anything, he's going to take all of his anger and just throw it at Snape, maybe trying to figure out what he's really trying to do. So Snape could be in some serious danger here.
I'm in danger!
Because of his year as Mad-Eye Moody, we know that he got an up-close and personal view of Dumbledore and Snape's relationship, and Bellatrix suspects Snape may not be on their side without having seen that. So between that and just how cunning Junior is, there is a chance that he could figure out that Snape is working against Voldemort. The problem for Junior, though, is that Voldemort believes Snape is on his side, and for Junior to believe he's right, he has to believe that Voldemort is wrong. And just like Bellatrix, he can't admit that Voldemort is ever wrong. So between that and Snape's ability as an Occlumens, and I think he's safe. Or at least as safe as he can be. And once we get to the Battle of Hogwarts, it's all Voldemort's plan, and nobody is going to stop him from doing what he wants to. And he's already taken in Harry's blood, so even if Junior somehow manages to figure out that that's the reason why Voldemort can't kill Harry, he's not going to be able to stop him, and to even try would mean that Voldemort is going to kill him. So for as great of an ally as Barty Crouch Jr. could have been, and as much as he could have changed the war, Voldemort just can't get out of his own way. I mean, even if the greatest idea in the world was staring him in the face, if it's not his, he's not going to use it. Only for him to then end up not being able to die and just constantly being in pain as he has to wonder what went wrong and never being able to figure out that the real problem was that he thought he was better than everyone else.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
But now I want to shift the question to you. How much chaos do you think Barty Crouch Jr. could have caused if he was at the Battle of Hogwarts? I know the Super Carlin brothers also have a theory about how Barty Jr. turned Mad-Eye's eye into a Horcrux, and I do like that idea because he's such a great villain, seeing him and seeing how much he was wasted feels like there were just so many missed opportunities and we could have gotten so much more out of this character, and that's kind of why I wanted to make this video today, just to dive on in and see what could have happened if he was there for the last 3 books. And, Voldemort just can't get out of his own way. I also know that I mentioned time turners in this video. If you want to see what branch of magic it is that they use, you can click on this video right here. And if you liked this style of what if, you can click on this video up here, see what would have happened if Snape was in Gryffindor. But that's all I got for you today, so if you enjoyed, please drop a like, subscribe if you want more like this, and I'll see you next time on STV.